work for you and to bring you information pertinent to the operation of the government in terms of the senior officials and what is happening. Thank you very much for joining us. Today, we are going to be talking the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force. And of course, you know, the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force is a body which is part of the national security landscape of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. The fundamental role of any government is to keep its people safe, to protect the fundamental rights and freedoms of its people, to maintain peace, to ensure that there is stability, and to ensure that the laws are obeyed. And when they are not, of course, to take disciplinary action. But of course, it is to hold society together so that society can function well, according to the well-known sociologist and father of functionalism, Emile Durkheim. Society must function, and in order for that to happen, that laws must be obeyed, peace and stability must be maintained, and people's fundamental rights and freedoms must be protected. Today, I have with me the commander of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force, Lieutenant Colonel J. Anthony Comrie. Welcome, Commander. And I have the Judge Advocate of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force, Lawyer Glenford Hamilton. Welcome to you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Right. Now, the Defense Force, the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force, people see you, and sometimes people don't exactly know enough about the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force. So I would like you to tell me what is the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force, Commander? What is its mission? What is its vision?
Good afternoon, Les Roy, and thanks again for having us. And season greetings to you and your viewing and listening audience. Today, I want to speak a bit about the Defense Force. And I'm going to look at the history, the composition, the duties, the Defense Board and its function, and also the forces that made up the Defense Force. The St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force was originally formed as a volunteer unit in 1896, some 125 years ago, in response to riots in several sugar plantations. The regular Defense Force did not come into being, however, until 1967, when it was decided that a regular force was needed following the public disturbance on the island of Anguilla, which was attempting at the time to secede from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And the administration that was existing in the volunteer force was not adequately trained to deal with the situation. The regular force was then disbanded in 1981 and re-established in 1997 after some 16 years hiatus. The act that caused the Defense Force to be re-established is the St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force Act of 10 of 1997, which has since been revised to the St. Christopher and Nevis Defense Force Act, Chapter 19.14 of the Laws of the Federation. Chapter 5 of that act gave permission for the establishment of a defense force. It read, there is established a defense force to be known as the St. Christopher and Nevis Defense Force, consisting of a regular force, a Coast Guard force, a reserve force, and a cadet force. The duties of the St. Kitts Nevis Defence Force. The Defence Force shall be responsible for the defence of St. Christopher and Nevis, and any such duty as the Defence Board, which is the governing body of the Defence Force, agree upon. One of our main function is service in aid of the civil power. And the civil power in this context is referred to the police. The Governor General may, acting in accordance with the advice of Cabinet, call out the Defence Force for service in aid of the civil power for a period not exceeding 6 months. And 6 months is important, that's why. With their arms and ammunition, where it is deemed that the resources of the civil power need to be augmented. And I mentioned 6 months because if the powers that be need to extend that 6 months, it have to go to Parliament. Also, what is interesting in this piece of legislation also is a member of the Defence Force called out for service under this provision shall have and enjoy all the powers, authority, and immunity which are vested in a police constable by law. So, in simple terms, we have the same powers as the police. The governing body which I spoke of earlier is the Defence Force Board, and the Act speak to that there is established a board to be known as the St. Christopher and Nevis Defence Board, consisting of the Prime Minister as a chairperson, such minister as the Prime Minister may appoint. Normally, it will be the AG or the National Security Minister, if not the Prime Minister. The Commander and the Permanent Secretary of National Security or any other public officer that the Prime Minister may designate. The function of the board shall be responsible for command, discipline, and administration of the St. Christopher and Nevis Defence Force and all other matters related thereto. The commander of the Defence Force, subject to the direction of the Governor General, be responsible for the operational use of the Defence Force. Where no direction has been given by the Governor General under the provision spoken to above, the Prime Minister may, as he or she deem fit, give to the Commander direction with respect to the operational use of the Defence Force in St. Christopher and Nevis for the purpose of maintaining and securing public order and public safety, and the Commander shall comply with the direction. And that cover the duties, the composition, and duties of the Defence Force.
Okay, so you mentioned, Commander, that the St. Kitts and Nevis Defence Force is made up of a number of units. Could you tell us a little bit more about those units and the function of those units?
Yes.
You mentioned infantry.
The regulation speak to the composition of the Defence Force, and there's a regular force which we refer to as A Company or the infantry, and their main duties are support to the civil power, as I mentioned earlier, parades and ceremonies, security of His Excellency, and disaster relief and humanitarian assistance. And we also have been called upon to meet our regional obligation through the RSS Treaty, and we was called upon this year to assist our sister island of St. Vincent, where a number of soldiers, along with police officers, went down in the aftermath of the eruption of the Last of Fair volcano. And the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is the maritime branch of the Defence Force. They are responsible for maritime law enforcement. Any law pertaining to maritime we enforce. Search and rescue, that's one of our obligation and what we call our bread and butter, that what we enforce most, where we search and we rescue persons that get in distress. We enforce fisheries regulation and fisheries laws. We also enforce immigration, customs, and quarantine from the Coast Guard. The Reserve, our brother company, they are in support of Alpha Company, the regular, and they form the core of the Defense Force Band. The cadets, which I would like to spend some time on, the cadet force, the St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force Cadets, is a national youth organization based in the school system and affiliated to the St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force. Membership is open to all school children between the age of 12 to 18 within the Federation. The Cadet Corps is one of the oldest organizations in the Caribbean, youth organization in the Caribbean. It was legislated in the laws of the Federation in 1917. The principal aim of the Cadet Corps is to complement the academic program of our school through the use of discipline, challenging activities, and national duty in building of respect, of self-respect, self-confidence, and the formulation of character in as many of our youth as possible. Alertness, punctuality, our sense of duty, patriotism, self-respect, respect for authority, physical and mental endurance, and camaraderie are some of the virtues that we instill in our cadets. Our vision for the cadets going forward is to have 4 companies. Alpha Company will be comprised of the high school in the Bastille area, and that's the 3 high school, Bastille High, Washington, and the convent. Bravo Company will be in the east, and it will comprise of Keon High and Sadler's High. Charlie Company will be in the west, will be Vochild High and Charles E. Mills Secondary, and Delta will be on Nevis, comprising of the Charlestown and the Gingerland Secondary School. We are presently partnering with the Department of Social Development on the alternate sentencing program, where the court, instead of sentencing first-time juvenile offenders to prison or to the New Horizon, will send them to the cadet and will take them through a program which is approved by the department. And that program is designed to whet the appetite of the participant, so when they would have completed that program, they will want to continue within the Defense Force, within the cadet.
Right. Now, Commander, what is the membership of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force? How many persons do you have enlisted?
At present, we just had a recruit intake last month of 30, 20 males and 10 females. We are up to, I think, is 180 thereabout, regular, and about 90 in Bravo Company.
Is that enough for you to carry out your service to the country?
I am happy that you asked that question, Mr. Williams, because the government has just approved a national security strategy that would have tasked the Defense Force to do much more than what we're doing presently. And we are in the process of formulating a proposal to send to government for an increase in numbers in order to effectively carry out our duties that being assigned to us through the national security strategy.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are the terms of enlistment to the Defense Force?
The terms of enlistment come in 2 forms. The Defense Force unlike the police force where everybody join as a constable, the defense force create two streams. We have the enlisted strain and the officer strain. And the enlisted, you merely have to have passed an entrance exam, and there's some medicals that you have to complete and pass, and also there's some security vetting. And then you can enlist. For the officer, you have to have 5 CXC subjects, and then you go through the vetting and the medicals. The officers are then sent off to either Jamaica or Guyana to partake in a young officer program. The Guyana strain, you do a 2-year program, and you will finish with an associate in military law as well as your officer certificate of completion. Jamaica do it slightly different. They just started their officer program, so they're still in a trial mode, and they use the Sandhouse model to carry out the thing. And there is 1 year, but in the going forward, it will be a degree program where you'll do 1 year in Jamaica, and then you'll do 2 year or 3 years online to complete your degree.
What if I want to enlist in the defense force, but I do not have the 5 CXC subjects?
Well, then
do you look at other criteria for a person enlisting, even if they fall short of that 5?
You see the word you use, enlisted? Mm-hmm. We look at it differently, because our junior rates they are enlisted, apart from officers. For the officers corps, you can join, as I said, for 5 O levels, or if you have a skill that is needed, then we can also bring you in as a direct induction, and that will you must have a profession. For instance, if you're looking for a judge advocate, then you have to be a lawyer. If you're looking for a medical person, you have to be a doctor. You can come in under that, or else you'll have to go through the normal young officer program. If you don't have that qualification, then you can join as an enlisted person, where you go from a private and you can progress right up to a warrant officer. At the officer strain, when you join, and when you graduated from your school, you become, if you're on the Coast Guard side, you become a midshipman, or if you're on the infantry side, you become an ensign, and you are waiting for commission. Commission is done through the Governor General, who is the Queen representative, because you're getting a Queen commission. So once you get your commission, on the infantry side, you become a 2nd lieutenant, and the Coast Guard side, you become a junior grade lieutenant. And then you progress up to a 1st lieutenant, then captain, then major, and then lieutenant colonel, which unfortunately is the top rank that we have in our organization.
Why do you say unfortunate? That's what you are. Now, Lawyer Hamilton, you are the judge advocate for the defense force. What is that? What is your role?
That is being essentially the legal officer of the organization. My primary directive is to advise the commander on legal matters coming out of the Defense Force Act, the things like the Queen's regulations, and the general law of the country. That primarily is it. We have gone above and beyond sometimes, in that individual soldiers may have an issue that doesn't conflict with the advice that is being given to the commander. And in those instances, the commander may request of me that I assist that soldier, and we do that. So that primarily is what I have been doing at the force. And I have been doing that at the force, if I may venture to say. I've been doing that for the last 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I should say since 1997. Is that 24? Perhaps.
Yes, 24.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing that since 97.
Okay. Right, so primarily you are there to represent the officers.
The commander, actually. The commander.
You represent the commander.
Yes.
If there is a disciplinary issue with any one of the members of the defense force, because I know that you probably have your structure at the Camp Springfield for disciplining members of the defense force for various breaches of the code of conduct, the regulations, and so on. Suppose a member wants to appeal a decision that has been made by the commander. What recourse does that member have?
Commander?
Normally the commander would not hear a matter. That matter is being heard at the company or unit level. So the unit commander will hear the matter. And if the judgment that is given is the soldier is not pleased, we have what we call, he can seek redress. He will seek redress in writing through the OC or the trial officer up to the commander. The commander will now assign someone of equal or senior rank or equal rank to review that sentence or that the OC would have given. And then based on what the review said, the commander will call the gentleman in and indicate to him, this is what. If he still does not please with what the commander would have agreed with, then he has the right to apply to the board, which I mentioned earlier. The board should be the final.
The defense board.
Yes.
So he can appeal.
Yes.
To the defense board, mm-hmm. And the defense board will look at the matter and adjudicate.
Yes.
In the case of the officer. Is there something you wanted to say to that?
Not really, no.
And what we spoke of is the summary matter. Mm-hmm. There is what we call a court-martial. That is a total different. Because in a court-martial, the accused can have legal representatives. It's just like the civil court. But it will be adjudicated by, depends on the offense, 3 to 5 senior officers, which the judge advocate will be one. And it will happen just like the high court. And you can appeal to the court now, mm-hmm. to the civilian court, rather than, because we are at the highest level within the organization.
Okay.
The only thing I would add to that, if I may, is that for clarity, there is the military court, which the commander just expounded on, and there's the civilian court. Sometimes we say civil, and in the wider community, it is taken to mean the non-criminal part of what happens out there. Now, when when in the force we say civil, we really mean the entire civilian section. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now, Commander, you spoke about needing more officers, and you gave some basic criteria for people joining the defense force. You spoke about security vetting, because of course you do not want undesirables in the defense force. Now, what are some of the qualities, I would ask you, that you would be looking for in an officer? The desired qualities to be in the force. You do not want people in the defense force who are going to bring the defense force into disrepute.
Our motto is courage. So that is something that we look for in every soldier. But we are looking loyalty, honesty, commitment, dedication. And the vetting process that we use, first we send the name to the police, so they will check and see if there is any criminal record, because you cannot join the defense force unless if you have a criminal record. And then we use the police force to do a background check on the individual, where they go in the community and seek more information on the individual. We also will do our own background check as well. And then we ask the police to assist us in the vetting, where they use polygraph, and we do, through our medical officer, drug tests to see if there was involved with any use of illegal drug, because that's something that we does not promote within the defense force.
Okay, so the member periodically undergoes drug tests. Is that what you're saying, to see if they? We
introduced that some years ago. However, we doesn't have any legislation or the legislation that we have doesn't have any teeth. So what we do, we give you 3 notice, and hopefully that you will come around, because we don't have the legislation to kick you out. And to compound that with the new Drug Act now, where you can have X amount quantity in your possession and you can smoke in your residence, we have asked the AG for guidance on that, because we are hoping that members of the security forces can be exempted from something like that, because we're not seeing you being an officer with a lethal weapon to come to work under the influence of drugs. So we are asking the AG to look into us for us and guide us in terms of how to move forward.
Yeah, because that has been one of the allegations, that members of the defense force, that they smoke marijuana, and the police as well. But you're saying that, but the legislation, if the legislation doesn't speak to them not indulging in that activity, then you cannot penalize them. You cannot penalize them, because we're living in changing times, as you correctly said, Commander. There are certain laws that have now become very lenient, especially towards the use of marijuana in certain quantities, and you can grow a few trees in your yard and use for your recreational use and all of that. We are not speaking here in terms of the medical use, because that's another story in itself, but we are speaking in terms of a recreational drug, just as, they will drink alcohol and things like that. But you are saying that if it hampers their work in that security body, then that becomes a problem. But if it doesn't, then what? Because some people may argue, well, I drink, but I am not a drunk. I smoke, but I am not an addict. I do it for my recreational use, and it does not affect me in the execution of my duties as an officer.
Right. There are policies, there are also policies of the force that may conflict, however, with the use of, say, marijuana and other drugs. And me, for myself, I would think that the way the force is constituted at present, conduct such as that, I would deem that to be conduct prejudicial to military discipline. But, like the commander has said, that in and of itself may not have sufficient teeth for punishment. And so we presently seek, because we have to, presently seek guidance from the government's legal officers, I mean primarily the Attorney General. We need that kind of guidance. We need that kind of teeth. We need that kind of clarity to determine where do we go from here, because, okay, for the wider community, this may be accepted, but in the military discipline requires something more than a higher benchmark than what obtains out there. And so we need that kind of clarity and guidance.
We also have to be mindful that policies doesn't trump laws. And if there are laws that give persons that prerogative, then our policy is null and void. We also have the question of religion as well. We brought ourselves as to be equal opportunity employers. Yeah. And if someone decides that they are Rastafarian and they can keep their hair in the acceptable level with the Defense Force, would you turn them away from being a member of the Defense Force? And they want to give their sacrifice, they burn sacrifice from time to time. You know? So all that is before the age for guidance, because where we go from it.
Yes, because on one hand, people have fundamental rights and freedoms, and you do not want to trample, for use of a word, to trample on those fundamental rights and freedoms by using an institution to do so.
Exactly.
And the question will remain, how far can a person go? How much can their fundamental rights and freedoms be curtailed? And in what situations or circumstances can you withdraw those fundamental rights and freedoms? I know we see a lot of this happening now that we have the COVID-19 pandemic and governments implementing all kinds of things, and there's a pushback because people don't like to know that government is controlling their lives. That is something of, they know that is something of dictatorships. It is not so much of democracy, but in certain situations, certain things have to be curtailed for the public good.
Hence a state of emergency.
For the common good. Hence a state of emergency, like what we have had and had to implement because of the pandemic. Lawyer Hamilton, you wanted to say something.
I thought so, but you covered it in the end, and you covered it beautifully. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing I could usefully add to that point.
Right.
People just don't like mandates. I mean, we know that from those of us who are of religious persuasions, know from the beginning of time, it was don't eat the apple. Mm-hmm. And who is he to tell me what to eat and what not to eat? I will eat the apple. I may have there may be consequences. Yeah. I will suffer the consequences eventually, but I will eat the apple because I'm not to be told, don't eat the apple. And
yeah. Of course we say it's an apple, but there's no mention of an apple in the Bible.
Well,
my study of scripture and all of that, there's no mention. It says the tree of
The fruit of the tree.
the fruit of the tree. It's a fruit, but I don't know why we associate it with an apple. But anyway, the point is that people do not like mandates.
However, if you want to enter a military institution and these are the rules existing, it is not for you to say, I want to come in, but I don't want to abide by the rules. You come in, you abide by the rules, or you stay out. I would have thought that was the wise thing to do.
Yeah. You see, and then other arguments are going to come in. What about alcohol? Alcohol can impair a person's judgment as well. But yet I am not restricted from drinking alcohol, but yet I am restricted from smoking marijuana.
But drunkenness is an offense.
But drunkenness is an offense within the force.
It's an offense, yes.
A person must not be found drunk in the performance of their duties. And if they're found drunk in the performance of their duties, they are disciplined.
Definitely.
Okay. Now, Lawyer Hamilton, you spoke about teeth. You know the legislation. You know the Defense Force Act. Is there anything in it that you think needs to be strengthened or to be given teeth? And when I say that, it is not to make the institution,
Barbaric.
right, so that, almost like, but is there anything that you think can be adjusted, maybe to bring about more discipline, maybe to bring about more?
As I read through the act from time to time, there are numerous things that come out at you. If we went through each of those, we'll be here all night. We won't bother with that, though. There are some disciplinary things, disciplinary issues, I would say they are, that really ties the commander's hands. There's certain things that I want to be very general. I don't want to get specific in anything because I know that he's doing certain things and he's making certain proposals. I don't want to talk tales out of school. But there are certain proposals in place to strengthen the commander's hand so that the force as a whole can do certain things. And this one is fairly general, so I can refer to it. Like suspension with or without pay. That is a gray area. Very, very gray area. To date, I believe we have been following the civil service, but they are not the same types of institutions. And so from time to time, we run into brick walls, resistances, because that the way we are set up at the force, it was not intended to fit on all fours with what obtains in the civil service. And so that is perhaps the best example that I can give to you at this time. And I wouldn't want to go into the others because I don't want to create specifics like I indicated.
Right. Commander, what are some of the benefits of joining the Defense Force? I would say a young person wanting to join the Defense Force, how would you sell the Defense Force? What are some of the benefits to be derived from joining?
When I took over the Defense Force, I pledged transparency and education to be top on my agenda. Today, I am pleased to report that my top management team would have all been exposed to tertiary level education. And I can be more specific. Between the top 7 officers in the force, they share about 9 master's degrees. So that in its sense will tell you that to join the force, you will benefit tremendously when it comes to education.
Those were acquired while they were already in the Defense Force.
We have a doctor who is at JNF, a soldier, and we have one soldier who is doing the 4-year nursing program at CFB. We have an officer who is in Rhode Island, Naval War College, doing a master's degree. And we have another soldier who is at the Five Island campus in Antigua doing something at UE. And we have two officers graduated this year with masters. So that in a sense. And it is not just on the academic side. We have tremendous skill sets. And one of our policy is to allow at least 2 soldiers per year, not only to go to our premier tertiary level education, CFP, academic side, but also on the technical side, and also to AVEC. And when it comes to Coast Guard, we have electrician, plumbers, you name it, life skills. And so, because I always said there's life after the Defense Force. And once you're a soldier, you're always a soldier. It pained me to see a soldier leave the Defense Force and doesn't have something that can sustain him and the family. So that is something that we push from the Defense Force. So there's tremendous opportunity to learn a skill, if you want to be academia, it is there. Yes. So definitely that is something that is, and is encouraged. Most of the persons would have gone and studied. For some reason, we're able to get government to agree for them to get study leave with pay. So they get the full salary for 3-4 years at their university. So that is encouraging. You know. So we encourage persons to move in that direction. And one thing that we want to do with the cadets is to have a SEXI program for those students who are doing SEXI, and to assist them with the SBAs and subjects area which don't require any laboratory because we don't have a lab. So we can assist them in that areas for them to excel in their studies. So there's tremendous opportunity to become a member of the organization.
Yeah,
we work hard, and at the end of the day, when independence come around, you don't hear soldiers and policemen getting awards. So the award is academics. We make sure that you go to university and come back with a degree.
Right. I know that the police force has had to go seeking outside of the country for members to join the police force. The Defense Force, I don't know if they've had that very same drive outside of the country to get people to join the security force, to join the Defense Force. But the point I am making is, do you think that pay, remuneration, is an issue why people are not joining? How do you balance that between love for country, being patriotic, and all of that, serving one's country and the economic benefit of being in the security forces?
Unlike the police force, the soldier starter salary is much less than the police, but we never have issue. We never had issue in terms of getting people to join. Actually, as I mentioned earlier, we just had an intake of 30 and we had to turn away. I was hoping that we put them on the next rotation. We never had an issue in terms of getting person to join. And even though members of the OECS who can come here and employ, our 30 are all Kitishan division. Nobody from the region, because we was flooded, inundated with so much application that was able to go with all petitions.
Okay, but will you accept if somebody from outside of St. Kitts and Nevis applies to join the force, will they be accepted? Do you have any rules against this, or?
We doesn't have any rule, but we give preferences to our locals. If that individual has a skill that the Defence Force need, then we will accept them. But coming normally, we give preference to our locals, to our citizens.
To the locals.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see that the person is from Grenada and applies here. Is that what you're speaking
Yes,
of?
that's what I'm talking about.
Wouldn't they be needing work permissions before I don't know. They're unanswerable questions. I would have thought.
If somebody unemployed, for example, in Grenada, and who is desirous of joining the Defence Force here in St. Kitts and Nevis, can they apply? And what is the process for such a person applying? That is my question.
I appreciate that.
The persons from the OECS, I think, in the agreement that they have within the OECS, that you can come, if you come into the Federation, you get an indefinite stamp on your passport. So there's no restriction. But I'm not sure that they have to have work permit. But I know for Greater CARICOM, Jamaica, Guyana, Barbados, they have to have work permits. But I don't think that those persons from the OECS,
They can come and live.
they can work here and live and work.
Come live and work.
Once they don't have a police record, a negative police record.
Right. So they can come here and apply.
Yes.
Or they can apply from there and then come here.
And we'd have persons in the past who came from Dominica, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Grenada, and we employ them because there's no restriction.
There's no restriction, right? Now, in terms of, I know you mentioned about the collaboration between the police and the Defence Force. What is that collaboration like?
It is great, actually. Actually, it's great. We have soldiers attached to almost every operational unit of the of the police force. We have soldiers attached to the SSU. We have soldiers attached to the anti-gang. We have soldiers attached to the judge resident. That's a police function, but we assist them in that. And we do police patrols. When I say police patrols, areas that the police have interest in, we will, at present, we do patrol in the New Town. If you realize that a couple months ago we had some shooting in New Town, and we would have assist the police in that area, but we do the night patrols. And because we doesn't want to, image is important, and we doesn't want to see, you see soldiers in the town area with rifles during the day. So we do that in the night, and the police do that in the day. And since we have been doing that, we would have seen a calm in the Newtown area. So we have getting results. We assist in the St. Peter's. We send a soldier to St. Peter's on a daily basis to assist. So we also assist at the Prime Minister's residence. I think we have three or four soldiers there to augment his security team. So there's a good working relationship.
Okay.
I'm not saying because I was a police, but we have a working relationship.
Okay.
I smiled when you asked the question because of what has transpired before. Because it was, the commander mentioned that the pay scales were different. And I smiled because it seems to me that where there is cooperation between the forces, the individuals are exposed in the very same way to the same dangers and etc. Yet the pay scales are different. I just smiled because of that. Because that is something that we can all think about.
Well, let me interject there. At the initial stage, they are different, but eventually they will caught up at the NCO, SPO rank. Corporals, they are married. But what we do to avoid that little friction, that we rotate them often. Because once you leave them with the police for too long, they think they are police and they want to be police, so you have to rotate them fast. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because the police work different from ours. We work 2 half, 1 police work by hours.
Right. So you are telling me that you don't see an issue raised by the lawyer in terms of the disparity in pay between the police and defense force officers?
No, because eventually they will caught up. Eventually they'll come on par. Because where a police constable have 4 increments, a soldier will have 7, because he start below. So he'll come up and eventually they will come on par. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
okay.
That's not an issue.
Okay.
And and there is also what we call a risk pay that is also paid to the soldiers. So I think they are comfortable.
The soldiers probably, some of them don't think that they are comfortable. You might think so, but some of them don't think so. That's just the reality. The equipment, what kind of equipment do you have, Commander, at the Camp Springfield? Is the equipment that you have, is it adequate? Suppose that we are supposed to have some sort of something here, big riot or something of that nature. Do you think that you are adequately prepared in terms of the equipment that you have?
I will say resource is always a challenge. And I would like to see each soldier be fitted with at least a bulletproof vest. That is not something that we're privileged of having at this time, but we're hoping coming out of this budget that we'll be able to cross that hurdle. For riots, we are fully equipped, even though we look at riot differently, because as a soldier, as a defense force, we're not supposed to be with the police during a riot. The police is supposed to go and do their thing, and when the police can't control, they may come at the back end. Because when the defense force comes in, they come to clean up. But we normally operate...
What do you mean by clean up, Commander? What do you mean by clean up? The defense force comes to clean up.
What a cleaner does? Clean.
Now, could you spell that out in clear terms? Because I don't know what it means. They come to clean up.
When the defense force, when the police cannot control the situation, and then you call in the defense force come and do what they have to do to make the situation calm.
Because somebody out there listening to you hearing that clean up may get a different sort of impression. Clean up can mean clean out. What does it mean?
Take care of the situation.
To take care of the situation.
Take care of the situation. Make sure the situation come back to normal. Mm-hmm. For the loving citizens we have in the Federation.
Have you had any complaints of your officers using unjustifiable force with respect to situations that they would have encountered? And how are those addressed?
Yes, we had situation, but most of the time when the situation occur, they are working with the police. But we from time to time we have lectures and we bring the police in, because soldiers are not trained to deal with people in terms of one-on-one. We train differently from the police. The police are trained to have a conversation. So what we tell the soldiers, that when they're working with the police, they are to provide security for the police, not to policing. You create an environment that the police can function properly. You create a cordon, so you keep the crowd back from the police, let the police do their job, not do the policing itself. And most of the young soldiers get caught up in that. Because you work with a fella for 3-4 months, you get attached, and you see something and you want to assist, you know. But you know, we keep on telling them your job is to provide security for the police, so the police can do the job effectively. But we have lectures for the young soldiers, and we keep on indicating to them, these are your duty, these are not your duty. This is how you deal with in a situation that we give them certain scenarios, and we grade them on it and indicate to them, no, you can't do that, you know. And we ask the police to come in and give lectures as well too, because the police is more familiar with dealing with that situation, with those type of situation. Mm-hmm. As locally said, the soldiers are more heavy-handed.
Right. And that leads me to a next question in terms of the training. In what does the training consist for a soldier? I remember once you spoke about the soft skills and so on. I remember going there one time when I think it was Althea France was there at the
training.
And giving some, lecture to the officers in terms of communication studies and all, communication and so on. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that still continue. As a matter of fact, for now, those soldiers that we have, those recruits we have, for now, we're just concentrating on their fitness level, and come January, then we go into the program.
You go into the program.
Yes. And we have, from time to time, have guest lecturers to come in and teach those sort of skills, because we realize that in the environment that we're operating in, we definitely need those sort of skills. Mm-hmm. And we're not seeing our departure from assisting the police in the near future. If not, it will get more. We get more involved, so we have to bring that sort of skill into theater.
Right. Okay, the Coast Guard. You have a Coast Guard. I think that you were once a part of the Coast Guard, if I'm not mistaken, were you?
I'm still a part of the Coast Guard.
You're still a part of the Coast Guard.
I'm a sailor.
Right, and so therefore the function of the Coast Guard, what equipment do you have in terms of the Coast Guard, and what is your contribution to national security?
The Coast Guard, unfortunately for the Coast Guard, we does not have our own legislation, but we enforce almost every legislation that deals with the sea. We do maritime law enforcement, and that is from investigating a murder to a larceny at sea. We do search and rescue, we do fisheries, immigration, customs. We make sure that the revenue of the states are protected. So we even do quarantine. So we and the Defense Force Act have Schedule 2, and Schedule 2 would have covered 22 different acts that we enforce. So the Coast Guard is very integral in our border security. We also now, as we speak, we are now trying to have a footprint on navies. We would have had conversation with the NIA, and it is favorable, and we are now hoping to have a temporary location at Long Point where we can operate from, and we are hoping early next year that will come to fruition. We presently is on navies on a daily basis, because we realize that navies is what we call a soft spot, and we believe that it's most of the legal activity in terms of weapons and drugs would have come to navies because of the lack of presence. So we at navies on a daily basis, at least 8 hours, be it in the night or in the day, we will spend on Navis in a vessel. We have identified a vessel to be placed on Navis, to station on Navis, so we can, our response time for the Navision boating and fishing public will be increased greatly because the vessel will be stationed on Navis come next year. And so the Coast Guard is there, and the Coast Guard will be there in the future. And we're just expanding our footprint. Presently we are searching for a replacement for our larger cutter, Coast Guard Cutter Stalwart. That is 38 years old. We would have make a decision not to continue the use. And we was in advanced negotiation for replacement. We went to Holland to look at a vessel. Unfortunately, when we got back, the company was involved with some not so nice review. Mm-hmm. So we had to cut the negotiation. But we're still searching. And why it's taking us so long? Because we're looking for a vessel that can do both law enforcement and disaster relief and humanitarian assistance. Because of our location, that we will have a hurricane every year, we'll need that vessel to assist. We may assist Antigua, we may assist Montserrat, we may assist Dominica. And because of our location, the most northern RSS country, then we expected to assist in those areas. So that is why it's taking us a bit. The last conversation we had with National Security is that they were seeking some assistance from the UK in terms of a replacement. So we are still looking to have a replacement because we definitely cannot function without that sort of platform.
Commander and Lawyer Hamilton, I'm going to open up the phone lines. I should have done so a long time ago, but we got so carried away in our discussion. But the numbers to call are 466-2666. That's 466-2666, 662-8674, 662-8674, 767-4765, 767-4765, and the overseas number is 1-239-645-4500. 1-239-645-4500. We welcome your calls. Right, so what is the difference between the B company? You spoke about the B company and the A company. What differentiates them?
The Bravo company, as is affectionately known, is what we call the reserve soldiers. They have the normal day job and they come in and do part-time soldiers. Because to carry out our mission, we need that support. And some of them come with skills that we doesn't have in the Defense Force. From time to time, when we're in situation, then we will embody them. And when we say embody, they mean they come in full-time for a period and they work like the normal soldiers. Hence, we have to give them similar training as a regular soldier. And how we accomplish that is every year, normally during the summertime, because of the pandemic we never had done this year, we have a camp, a reserve camp, and they will come in and we sharpen their skills. And if they are working for government, it is much easier to get them to come in rather than the private sector. So we can have them go on training similar to, overseas training similar to the regular corps if they're working for government, because government will accede to that, rather than TDC, they say, I can't afford a soldier to let this man go for 3 months. You know? So if they're working for government, it's much easier for them to travel. But we try to give them a similar training to those of the regular, because they're expected to perform the same duty and work alongside. And that is why you find that you can't differentiate because we have the same uniform. You don't know who is Bravo, who is Alpha, and that to avoid any stigma.
So you have more persons in full-time or more persons in reserve?
It should be the other way around. We have more people full-time because the reserve should be twice as much as the regular. But there is I mentioned 90, and those are the 90 that we can count on, but there's others that come from time to time. And also in the reserve we have two classes. We have the A and the B, or the first class and second class. The A is those that come on a regular basis, and the B class is those who only come out in terms of disaster. For instance, if you're a businessman and you can't spare time to come every Wednesday, then you're asked to be transferred to the big company of the reserve. And when we have a hurricane or any natural disaster or during election or those kind of period when things are high, then we solicit your service.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So they don't wear different uniforms. You're not able to distinguish who is in B or who is in A. And the reserve, they can have normal jobs outside, full-time, and they are called upon when they are needed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Can those that are employed fully with the Defense Force have jobs?
That is in a short answer, yes. But they must. That's right. They must have permission from the commander.
Okay.
They must seek permission from the commander.
Okay. We have a call. Working for you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and the officer there. Season greeting to working for you. I have a question for the officer. You hear me?
Yeah, hearing you.
Okay. Yeah, officer, I heard you said that you are looking for a good boat to replace one of these boats that we have here, and one that can help in different disasters. That is so good. But do you all think about getting a boat as fast or even faster than those cigarette boats that they use to commit the crime out there in the waters? Because the culprit, they seem to be always ahead of the law. And so therefore they would have boats that could outrun our Coast Guard. And whatsoever boat around, they make sure they go to get the best to outrun them so that they don't be caught. So, question, do you all thinking about outrunning them on the seas with a faster boat? That is my suggestion. But anyway, all the best for the season. And happy New Year when it comes. And I hope that you all don't have to go out there go encounter any nonsense on the waters coming to our land. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I listen off the ear.
So much for your call.
Thank you, Culture. And I want to delay your fears. We have those vessels already. I was merely speaking of a larger vessel that can go from islands to island, but we have those go fast. We have at least 3. And I don't think we have any vessels around this part that can outrun them. So have no fear. We are already equipped in that department.
Okay. Right, so the overseas training commander, what sort of overseas training is provided for soldiers so that they can increase their capacity, or the capacity of the institution can be increased?
Overseas training, we have what we call partner nations that provide training for us. Also, a part of the RSS Treaty is to provide training. And they do a pretty good job in that area, both from the land side and the sea side. There are basic courses that run every year. So we have those soldiers or sailors that we pass through each of those courses. So depends on where you're at in terms of if you're at the land side, you'll go do basic junior NCOs, trained soldiers, section commanders, platoon sergeant, right up to an officer. And the Coast Guard now, if you're a boat driver or engineer, you have training for those areas. But interestingly, at the Coast Guard, the Coast Guard, the U.S. provide much more than just enlisted training. They provide training for the officers, and hence the opportunity to go and go to a good university. You can go to military university where you can get your master's, and that is something that we are taking full advantage of. I myself is a product of National Defense University, and the Coast Guard, most person would have gone to Naval War College, where you do your senior staff course, as well as you do a master's if you've been selected or elected to do so. There's tremendous opportunity for training. Also in the skill areas, you do from electronics, electrical, IT, medicals, shipbuilding, ship husbandry, engineering, damage control, air conditioning, refrigeration, all the lifelong skills. It is there to gain, and we do take advantage of that. As I mentioned earlier, Guyana have been dear to us in terms of training. All I have to do is to send the individual, and they provide uniform and meals and accommodation for up to 2 years. So that is something that I'm intended. Hopefully that the COVID does not hinder for next year, and I will decide to take full advantage of it, because we definitely have to train our personnel if we need them to perform. Yes.
I know that there's a regional gathering. I think they've had it here a few years ago with people from various countries within the Caribbean. You had people from Dominican Republic and other places.
Exercise trade winds.
Trade winds.
Yes. That is because of our region and our size, interoperability is important. So we train separately, but when we go into theater, for instance, when we went into St. Vincent, we had to go in as a body. So trade winds was designed to make sure that we can work together. So we come together once a year to put all our skills together, hone our skills, and see where we're needed to improve. So when a disaster come around, or when we have to go in for whatever reason, we are in step with each other. We know what is expected of us, and we can adequately go and perform. So that's why trading came about. And we had it twice in 3 years. I guess I was saying it.
Okay, right. Is there any reason why the Camp Springfield is next to the National Radio and Television station? Is that a strategic thing?
I think they're a bad customer. They're not paying rent. Yeah, I think it's strategic. I think it was strategic then, because for any code, especially back then when you had only radio, you go on the radio station and announce it, and the whole country stays still.
So that's the first thing that they take over. They take over the means of communication.
So I think it was strategic, yeah, and we still provides free security for them.
Okay, right. You know, we have been a relatively peaceful country. We have not had the sort of instability that you see in other countries. We've not had many political unrests. We've not had attempts at coup d'etat and all of that sort of a thing. But I do know that the military plays an important part in terms of the stability of any country. Insurrections and things like that. In fact, when you began, you said that it started out because of the riots that we had here, the Buckley's riots, and you know what created those sorts of riots, injustice felt by people working on the plantations, being disadvantaged and all, and there was an insurrection and so on. But I have seen on TV, sometimes when you have those sorts of things, you have soldiers that deflect and go with the enemy. What happens in those cases? And how are such soldiers really dealt with?
I don't think that, I mean, some years ago, we was dubbed as the First Nation and all. I believe that our level of education is contribute to our not being that sort of country. And I believe that each administration would have worked hard to keep it that way. So I am seeing us moving in that direction in the near future. But there is something called treason.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Brother Leslie. Ken Martin here.
Yes, sir.
Like to thank the commanding officer for his very forthright interview, you know.
Yes.
As an old cadet corps from the grammar school, and I went into the defense force, and very disciplined. Hello?
Yes, we're here. We're hearing you,
Yes.
Mr. Martin, yes.
Yes, Brother Leslie. I wish to thank the commander for the services, you know.
Okay.
Yes, and Commander, thank you all for your services. And I used to be the when I.
We're hearing you. We can hear you.
Oh yes, Commander Ken Martin here.
Yes.
Thank the commanding officer for their services, you know. And I was a member of the cadet corps, grammar school cadet corps. And then I went into the volunteer defense force, where I played in the band for about 10 years, you know, and Captain
Morris. You jump in.
from Captain Edgar Bridgewater.
Yeah, Bridgewater. That was many moons ago.
I enjoyed the wake-up call at I am still guided by the wake-up call at 0645.
Okay, Mr. Martin. I think the call kept in and out.
Call keep jumping.
and it keep dropping, but we have another caller. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes. Good afternoon, Les Roy and Captain. I am back.
Yes.
You see what happened? I think Mr. Martin is listening to his device.
Oh.
Yeah, but what I'm going to say here is this, that the little knowledge that I have about with the Army and ZIZ is that the Army was there even before I was born. And I am old like Methuselah in the Bible. And then Mr. Bradshaw had a lot of vision of things that things that can happen. And he also had experience of things that happened in his time. And when he decided to build a radio station, he said, well, the radio station should be the brother or the sister to the defense force. Because when coup d'etat and so takes place, they always go to the area of communication and use that to let the whole country know what is taking place. So ZZ is just a little baby in a pamper to the geographical site of the defense force. So that's my little knowledge about that.
Okay.
But you all are doing a great job there. Mr. Martin, try to get back in. You have some experience and knowledge coming with. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Okay. Now, Commander, could you speak a little bit to the hierarchical structure of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force? I know that you are rank-based. All of these are rank-based organizations, institutions, and something in terms of how people move from one rank to the next.
Well, let's do it from the top. We have the Governor General at the top. He is the Commander-in-Chief. And then you have the Defense Board, which the Prime Minister chair. And then the Commander. And under the Commander, you have different staff officers. And staff officers are my advisors. You have S1, which is personnel, S2, intel, S3, operation and training, S4 is finance and logistics. And they should be headed by majors or captains. And then that's as for force headquarters. Then you have a company, which is headed by a captain. And within the company, you have a company 2IC and a minimum of 3 platoons. And each platoon is headed by an officer. You have a platoon sergeant, then section commanders, and come right down to the private. But for promotion, there are boxes a private soldier will have to tick. And you tick them by passing an exam or passing a course, a training. For you to move from private to Lance Corporal, which is a 1 chevron, you have to do your trained soldier course and your junior NCOs. And for you to move to Corporal, which is 2 chevron, you have to do your section commander. A corporal will be in charge of 2 sections, and a section for us is a 7 men. A lance corporal will have 7 men under his control. The corporal will have 14, and then you have the sergeant who will have to do his platoon sergeant course successfully, and then he will have 3 sections under his command, which will make up a platoon. Also, you have on the side you have specialists like a drill sergeant, and that is something that you add to your platoon sergeant if you want to be a drill instructor. And if you're going into the medic field, you have to do the medic, or if you're into what we call pioneers or the engineers, you have to do that in that field, but you have to do your basic core course, which are your platoon sergeant to make platoon. And then you do senior NCOs, which provide you, give you the chance to make to warrant officer. We have 2 warrant officers, warrant officer 2 and warrant officer 1. Warrant officer 1 is the most senior enlisted person within the defense force. Yeah. On the officer side now, as I mentioned before, you come in as an officer cadet. After training, you graduate as a ensign if you're on the land side, or a midshipman on the Coast Guard side. and then when you get commission from the Governor General, who is a Queen representative, because you get a Queen commission, you move up to first lieutenant, second lieutenant. And 2 years, you just have to behave. In 2 years, because it's automatic promotion, you go up to first lieutenant. Then first lieutenant, 5 years, you go to captain. 7 years to a major. And then you're max out as a lieutenant colonel.
So it's quite a climb to the top where you are.
Also, it must be mindful that once you make captain, above there is political appointment.
Oh, so the commander is a political appointment.
The offices.
The offices of the commander,
yes.
Not the commander himself, but the office of, you are very diplomatic. The office of the commander
yes.
is a political appointment. Yes. Now, you mentioned also that you are in need of more soldiers to man the institution in terms of the work that you have to do. What pitch really would you make, to have more recruits in the institution? How many more are you looking for to carry out the work of the institution?
I don't think the problem is getting soldiers. The problem is to get the numbers of the establishment increase. And we are hoping that that is done based on the job that the national security strategy would have given the Defense Force. So we're hoping those additional jobs they give us, that will come along with the additional soldiers.
Okay.
We are hoping sometime next year to make a pitch to cabinet to get the increase. And I think it is done throughout the whole architecture of national security. Police will do that, fire will do that, immigration, because they have given us additional responsibility.
Now, a soldier has to make an oath, right? He has to swear. And what's the process? For example, you can have somebody who is honorably discharged from the Defense Force and somebody who is discharged dishonorably. Now, after you have been discharged from the Defense Force, suppose that you take information, privileged information from the Defense Force and reveal that information to others. Are there any sanctions for that?
We have the Defense Force has policies. Depends on the level of clearance you have. Then you have X amount of years you cannot speak to it. If you're top secret, you have 25 years that you cannot speak of what this goes within. So if you breach of that, then you'll face the sanctions, whatever sanctions.
I'm not sure that the act is clear on that. Commander, have you seen it?
We have that. When you take an oath of secrecy, you have 25 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years.
I think that quality of exposure is more it is overall. It's not just the Defense Force, I don't think. But as far as the force is concerned, I haven't seen anything in the act that speaks definitively to that. And so I hesitate to say what. I hear the commander with respect to the policy, but he himself said a while ago that policy doesn't trump the act.
Remember also where the Defense Force Act does not cover, then we refer to the Queen's Regs.
Okay.
So that will come from the Queen's regulation. And the Act allow us to use the Queen regulation up to 1979. Once it's not covered in our act.
Up to 1970? 1979.
About there, yeah.
So,
That's about right.
so interestingly, if that legislation is revised after 1979, you only can use the old. You can use the revised one because it goes further than 1979. But you use up to 1979.
Okay.
Even, for instance, if you have a contracting officer that does business with a manufacturer, he cannot finish with the defense force and go and work directly for it. 5 years after pass. And that is to avoid any corruption. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Is there anything that you want to say, Lawyer Hamilton? You think there's anything that we did not cover that you would like to give an input before we leave?
I think there is something. There is some misconception in the community as to how soldiers are punished, if you like, how they are charged, how things are dealt with, and there seems to be some conflict between what happens at the force and what the police do. There are certain charges that the force is not in a position to deal with because the law says that it is not. Charges for, say, murder, manslaughter, treason, and rape. Those four come readily to mind. There might be 5, but I'm seeing 4 in my mind at this time.
You're correct.
Thanks. Outside of that, when a soldier commits an offense, be it military or civil, and you remember I spoke of the civil earlier, those are required to be dealt with in-house. The way it is now, or the law is honored in its breach maybe, but that's not the way it's done. You seem to be in a position where the police take a statement and they come to the soldier and they deal with the soldier at that level. Well, my mind says that if what the soldier is alleged to have done falls outside the ambit of those 4 things I just indicated, then there must be an investigation in-house. The kind of investigation that the commander would determine and say, let's go forward this way, rather than for the van, as we know it, to just roll up and say, we got a warrant for you, come let me go. There is something unholy about that. There's something to my mind unlawful about that. And the risk of going on too long, that is perhaps one of my chief bothers at this time.
I think that come about because of this closeness of the community, and we always hear that justice must be done or seems to be done, and we feel that the criminal court is where justice is meted out. So someone will feel better, that the police deal with the matter rather than the defense force deal with a soldier. Even though the defense force may give greater punishment, they'll feel more comfortable that the matter is handled within the civilian court than at the camp, because they say, oh, I'll let me soldier. So I think, on that premise, that is why we sort of relax and let the police go and go that course.
So you were saying that the internal the internal investigation and dealing with a matter might be seen as not being independent, might not be seen as being transparent.
Exactly.
And there are some matters that are so grave that it requires the involvement of the police in terms of people being charged and taken to the court for their trial. Such grave matters, you mentioned one, for example, rape or murder,
Treason.
sexual molestation, and that sort of a thing.
But all sexual molestation is not rape.
You're right, I know that. All is not. But I'm saying that that can be one of the, categories and so on. We have to, yes. So, anything you want to say before we leave?
Well, we like to thank you for the opportunity to come and explain to the listening and viewing public of how the in and out of the Defence Force. And we want to say that the Defence Force is an equal opportunity employer, and we defend and protect the rights of each individual. So I don't think that there is any fear for a person to come and be part of this noble organization, because there's a future and there's much opportunity to gain as being a member of the Defence Force.
What's the process for applying?
It is simple. You collect a form at the guard room, and you fill the form in, and then we get in contact with you. Leave a telephone number. We get in contact with you, and the process started from there.
Okay.
Yes, simple.
Okay.
I too want to say thanks for having us. I believe it was a worthwhile hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah, especially, and it's sobering, especially at this time of year, and I'm grateful for that.
Right. Okay.
But well, I'm here because the commander ordered me to be here.
He's a major, didn't tell you that.
Oh, he's a major. I see, okay. Right, well, thank you to both of you, Commander Comrie, and let me refer to you by your military title, Lawyer Major Glenford Hamilton. Thank you so much.
Judge Advocate.
Judge Advocate of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defence Force. Thank you to both of you for coming and sharing, and I do hope that more persons will take up the offer to join the noble institution of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defence Force to serve their country, to protect their country, which is very important. Thank you to all of our callers to today's program, our listeners to today's program. We continue to appreciate your company from week to week. We are in the festive season. On Saturday, we would celebrate the birth of Jesus, what is known as the Nativity or the Incarnation, or whatever theological name you want to give to it. But from all of us at the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, all of us, including the director, we want to say a Merry Christmas and a joyful Christmas, a peaceful Christmas, and may you eat a lot and may you drink a lot. Thank you very much for listening and viewing. Next week we will be back with another edition of Working for You. Until then, I am Les Roy Williams.
There had it, folks, another edition of Working for You here on FM 98.9. We're going to head back to our regular programming.